Welcome back to Charting Stack, where we talk to the people building the next generation of urban mobility. Today, we're joined by Morten Rynning, CEO and founder of CityQ, the company turning the car versus bike debate into a new category. A four-wheel e-bike that stays in the e-bike rule set, but feels closer to a small car in comfort, stability, and daily practicality. CityQ now offers multiple models from cargo to passenger, built around a chainless pedal generator drivetrain, weather protection, and modular capacity. Morten, it's great to have you here. Great pleasure.
Yeah, nice.
Right.
Nice being here.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. I'd like to kick off with a few basic questions. So, basically, what was the idea behind CityQ? What made you start CityQ? What was the maybe main frustration?
Yeah, or inspiration. I would say that I had this kind of Apple moment when I got my first Tesla like a long time ago, and being a Norwegian, so everybody wanted a Tesla in like 11, 12, like more than 10 years ago. I got one of the first, and I saw this enabling fantastic joining technology with vehicles. Um so that was this really inspiration for coming from IT industry and seeing what's happening. The other thing was Norway and Oslo. Norway has a lot of EV, so we are reaching like 98% of all cars sold are electric vehicles. So we are seeing this kind of totally transformation from regular cars into electric cars. And that's fantastic, but it doesn't really solve all the problems. So I saw that we had a lot of we have a lot of needs for smaller vehicles. 40% of the electric cars are batteries. So we have a lot of kind of weight that brings into not being efficient. The other thing was Oslo especially, and I realized that's going to happen all over the world, was trying to close inner city for cars. Firstly, like gasoline cars, but they also said like, we don't want to have these heavy vehicles and congestion in inner city. So you better be a pedestrian or you be cycling. And looking at myself having like e-bikes and racing cycle, it didn't really work. It couldn't solve the problem. So I realized that this kind of transformation that it's going to happen in all city with congestion issues and trying to be more sustainable, it's not going to happen unless you have a different type of a vehicle. So I didn't really make a bike, but a platform for the transformation of inner city last mile transportation. And the idea was if you can go from a 2-ton EV towards a 100-kilo EV and make it like a bike, so it regulated like a bike, that would be the sweet spot of combining then reducing car traffic, congestion, sustainability, and make bike more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, you did describe CityQ as downsizing a car into an e-bike. Uh, what would that mean in practice? I mean, we when we see a CityQ vehicle, it looks like a car, but it's a bike you need to pedal, and it doesn't look like that, which is incredibly cool. Could you tell us how did you achieve that, and what does it mean to downsize a car into a bike?
Exactly. And it seems like a slogan, but it's basically a really important part of the concept. So we were trying to do a form factor that gave this feeling of it, the comfort of it, the safety of a car and the flexibility of a car, while thinking like, how can you build the crossover from what you are expecting of reliability of a vehicle like a car, but then being as agile as a bicycle. So we work quite a lot on that part. Can we make it super light, not trying to make it a bike in the sense that there's a lot of things, including chain, that makes bike not the most comfort and efficient way with a lot of pain points. So can we get rid of all the pain points? So we're not trying to build something that a hardcore bicycle guy would love, but something that could bring people that normally would relate to a van or a car to accept. So if somebody says this is a big car, it's a small car that still a car driver can accept. So that's kind of the concept. If you can get them to accept it, if you can get the driver to feel this is actually fun, safe, comfortable, and doing my job, then you can do the transformation. And I think that's been incredibly important. And we are really liking it when customers are putting up stickers on the bike saying, this is a bike. Because they're being stopped all the time by people saying, wow, what is this? Is it a car? Is it a bike? And they're getting surprised when they realize that it's a bike, it has pedal. And then they think, oh, well, it might be heavy cycling. They get into it and they get a feeling, oh, wow, this is more like a car. So you're switching the perception from what you see, from what you feel, from what you actually are being able to achieve with it. And that's kind of the transformation you can do. You can't legislate a transformation only. You have to make it work with solutions. So when cities are looking for solutions, we try to make a solution that works for the users as well as the policy.
Yeah, understood. I'll bet that's why the passenger version is so good and looks so good because uh, the way I see it, if you need to go above 6 kilometers per hour, you need to pedal, but that pedaling it should feel so easy and so light. So it does kind of have the car-like feeling, I suppose.
Exactly. And I think this kind of changing the perception is very important. If you feel it's not what you would like from a bike or expect from a bike, then you would have the saying, why should I buy something more? I mean, I can have a two-wheeler, I can have a three-wheeler. This is just more of the same. But when they get into this one, we say anyone getting into the CityQ and driving it around will come back with a smile and say, hey, I can see my using it not only for the job, but for myself. And then when you know there is a family version or a passenger version, they're like, when can I get one? I did this yesterday in London, inner city, Paddington area, and we were just bringing in two bikes, one cargo and a passenger, and a van stops and jump out and said, is this a bike? Can I test one? Can I buy one? Can I buy two? What can I get of prices? And we're seeing this all the time, that there's a felt problem for anyone trying to operate in inner city. And there's this feeling of this one actually solving it. And as you were mentioning initially as well, the look and feel needs to be car-like, but not a car in the sense like it's a box that doesn't look good. It needs to be friendly. And DHL had been using CityQ for 3 years in London, and the feedback from the driver is they're getting proud. They're in the ambassadors. They are getting good feedback from even from pedestrian and the public when they're using it and when they stop door to door. So you're not feeling like you're interfering with other bicyclists or car. You're fitting into the general transportation of the cities.
Yeah, so we mentioned the look and feel. I think definitely. I mean, you guys have some competitors, but in general, there's not a lot of brands like CityQ in the same category. But I think definitely CityQ is definitely leading design. I think it looks really good. Me and Philip just mentioned the front reminded us of McLaren Senna, of McLaren line
Yes.
with the front lights. It looks very aggressive, very nice. And then the wheels also looking like some kind of OZ Ultra Leggera super racy wheels. So you kind of are merging both worlds of looking very cool, looking like you are. It is in some way of a car, but then at the other side, there's a practicality factor, which is exactly your main selling point. Um, I wanted to kind of go through the your model lineup. As we kind of briefly touched. If you can just explain, so there's a 850, 12,000, so cargo, bigger cargo, a pickup, and then there's a passenger version, right? Um, what is can you kind of like explain to us your lineup?
So what we try to achieve is giving you enough space to bring along um, cargo for what normally a van is bringing that is not filled up. So I mean, if you have like a lot of breweries or e-commerce parcel, you should use a van. But most of them are half empty or just almost empty, and you could do a lot into a cargo bike. And right now you had previously just two-wheelers and some three-wheelers doing like half a cubic-ish. And then there's been a development toward trying to bring like 2 cubic-ish, which is almost like half a van for some of the smaller vans. We said there's a lot of benefits if you can stay super agile. So small enough to get through a door, 89 centimeters, as light as possible, so you're not interfering with other cyclists, etc. So 100 kilo plus, and then bringing the sweet spot or what you need to go along. And that is, for us, being in the range of a little bit above half a cubic towards 1.5 cubic. So staying within super small, super light, and then being as much as you could cover there. And we saw that fits for all the kind of food deliveries, groceries, facility management, all the service people, all these smaller packages, the couriers, and also to quite a lot of the e-commerce part. And we saw that area we can cover quite a lot with boxes that fits on top on a modular space. So we actually made a platform for where you can put whatever box you like, and the customer can buy their own box if they like. But we made, as you're mentioning, a little bit less than a cubic and about 1 cubic towards 1.5, and there's a lower compartment as well. So you got the modularity, and you actually got 2 compartments. Lower compartment where you have heavy things, smaller part, and then the upper box you can make yourself. So that creates a flexibility, and it's not a flexibility that requires customization from us. Anyone can just buy it without a box and put their own box on it. Then pickup utility, it's very practical for service, cleaning, parks, bringing open parts. And we've seen a lot of those that say, just bring me a pickup and I will put whatever on top. And as you're mentioning, the passenger is a totally different part. But when you look upon traveling in inner cities, we saw and have seen segmentation of this one, saying like in all the traffic that would be done on the last mile, about half of it's going to be passenger transportation, whether that's like family transportation, their own family, or it's B2B transportation, employees, cabs, elderly people, that type. Then the typical focus has been e-commerce, parcels. That represent of these 100%, 10%. And the remaining is a fragmentation of facility management services and inner things. And when you look upon traffic in inner cities, about 2/3 of the commercial traffic is service, meaning repair, getting handymans, electricians, and these kinds. So why did we make this in this one? Not the bigger the better. We say if it's big and too big, you represent 10% of the markets. And you might have a good solution, but you're competing with vans for that part. If you make it too small, you're competing with a two-wheeler, and this is expensive. That's why we made the sweet spot there.
Awesome, awesome. We will post a lot of pictures. They're all looking very interesting, all the variants. Can I ask you what are the current percentages regarding demand? What is the most popular version right now for you?
I would say the market that has matured on the B2B has been the cargo box market. We have a lot saying, oh, we need the biggest box. And then when they realize the 850 is actually fitting quite nicely, they say, next time we're going to buy 850. So, and you might, why do we choose one 850? It's like a weird part. Why don't we choose 1 cubic? It's almost 1 cubic because there's the lower compartment, but we have optimized it for Euroboxes. So we made it fit for the 2 different types of Euroboxes, so it's easy to take a Eurobox, fit it into the lower compartment and the upper box. But when you ask demand, I would say that an incredibly demand for a passenger bike. And we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing like, I started like 3 years ago just opening up for some pre-ordering, some showing interest, and we got like few thousand right away. It's like, it's kind of annoying been having to kind of dismiss all of them because we're not being ready for it, and saying like people calling me every time, Christmas weekends, every time, sending emails, all different language all over the world, with a highly engagement about this is exactly what I'm looking for. I lost my driving license. I have my
Mm-hmm.
mother and father that needs it. I have a children. I have a dog. I have epileptic. I've been epileptic. I can't go a car. It's like totally. I got enough to write a book about all the needs that people are bringing to us and describing it. And I feel awful about not being able to solve it. But it's quite unfair that it's more expensive for private people than it is for corporates. You have to pay the VAT, and you got incentives for corporates that in some countries bring like better options. And then you have people that would really love to buy it, but it's too expensive right now. So we're saying one of the important things we're doing is saying, let's make a platform that fits for B2B and B2C. And that's quite challenging because normally the B2B, you don't make a truck and say it's for private families. It's robust, it's reliable, it's heavy. We have to stay on the sweet spot of being super light that we can fit for the passenger, so we can bring down the cost and enabling the same chassis, the same platform even for B2C. That will solve a lot of issues and will benefit all these people that really want to have it and that's being that engaged.
Yes,
Just
and as you said, I was mentioning passenger, and as we thought, I just came back from London, and you all as well, and they have those tuk-tuks, let's say in London, those like small bikes that are hideous in my opinion, but I would love to see CityQ replacing them because it looks actually nice. It will fit in the whole British infrastructure, and I think there's definitely a lot more potential for them. Can we just briefly also touch on the pricing? What's the current pricing of the models?
So it's in the range of in euro 11 to 15,000.
Hmm.
Ex VAT, and there's some freight element to it. So we're basically making this in Germany, and then we have partners or ourselves importing it and preparing it, and we're selling it with service. So for that, it's depending a little bit like how is it operated in each country. That's why price will vary a little bit, but it's in that kind of range. And we've been working quite a lot to get price down. So we've been working in the first 100 bikes we made, we sold for some price, not making any margin, actually too costly. Now we've been going through an industrialization process. So our cost is coming down. We're getting a margin and we're preparing for further scale. So we kind of seeing this as early adopters scaling and trying to do this in a healthy way, that we're actually building an industry, and it's very important to understand how you're building that in a sense that it actually makes sense. It's what we've seen from a lot of issues in making this new type of vehicle is that you can't just make 10,000 of it and hope that there is a demand for it. There is this early adopters gap, and you need to be able to handle that before you go big.
and
Absolutely, and we talked to a lot of owners of the business in micromobility space. Everybody says kind of that 10,000 euros dollars is kind of that bracket when it comes to visually it looks appealing, more appealing for the market. Philip, please
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
take it away.
I think some of the cargo bikes have been are coming across as too expensive. I think that when you're hitting like 20,000, you're competing in the cost level with light commercial vehicles, and it's not fitting for the buyers in commercial aspects. You can't expect them to go with a bike just because it's sustainable.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we've seen
Yes.
some L7 category vehicles for less than 20,000 euros. And it's maybe, I think it could be hard for a L7E vehicle to compete with a cargo bike that's around the same price point. But there are some unique stuff that I'd like to talk about, something you mentioned some minutes ago. And, the secret sauce of CityQ, it's the drivetrain from what I gather. So it's chainless and uses a pedal generator approach. So could you maybe walk our listeners through how does it work when you have a chainless drivetrain?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the big concept is like when cars go electric, you talk about not needing gasoline anymore, you go with battery. Yes, that's right. But more importantly, you become a computer, which means the functionality of a car then is more software based than mechanical based. And that is a huge important element of how functionality is changing more rapidly. You can be able to upgrade it. The vehicle has a more dynamic structure. So I like to say that this shift from cars to electric vehicles is a huge change beyond the battery parts. This is actually the basic level, not as interesting as the way you actually defining what the vehicle is. And that's the same with a bicycle. When we entered this market, and I was coming from EV part, but also from IT part, I said, I'm never going to make a mechanical drivetrain bike. It's not going to work. I said, it needs to have the software based capability. And we want to have this way of evolving both regarding connectivity, but also how it works. And we got question and pushback like, can you call it a bike when it's not a mechanical chain? And you had to try to explain that it's not the chain that makes the bike.
Yep.
The chain is just more than 100 years old inventory that's waiting for something to change. You're having a pedal that enables you to maneuver the bike, and it brings like speeds, acceleration, range, etc. But how you bring that force from pedal back to the motors is actually irrelevant. And you could use a belt, you could use a chain, you could use a shaft. So other mechanical drivetrain is already evolved. But when you put it into a software, it opens up a whole lot of opportunity. And that's why it's so interesting. First of all, you get rid of a huge barriers. One of the most annoying things with a bike is when you have issues with the chain. And on a regular two-wheeler, it's just annoying. When you have a 3 or 4-wheeler, you have a longer chain, or you actually might have 2 or 3 chains. And you want to adjust this, you have to go with the first chain, second chain, third chain. It's a nightmare. So we looked at the pain point on cargo bikes, and chain was one of the biggest one. So that's getting rid of that, reducing pain points. But secondly, you increase stability of functionality. You're enabling reverse, not only reverse, you could do that with the chain, but it's so much easier to do. You're enabling the ability that you are independent of whether you're going uphill or straight forward. You can enabling a soft jump. So if you are in a hill, you have to stop for a red light and you start again. With a mechanical one, you will have a lot of issues with it. With this one, it just kicks off. And you're enabling different kind of drive modes, which makes me really enthusiastic. Like you can have a sport mode, eco mode, you can have a sporty mode and a safe mode. As Marion was talking about, kind of it looks sporty. Everyone getting into the bike is saying like, wow, it kicks off like a sports car, and saying like, yes, because we decided a mode to be sporty. But we can make a mode safer or increasing the range. So this way you could do, and this is not defined then by changing any parts, it's changing software. And getting back to Tesla and some of the parts, when you do this over the air, you're actually enabling the vehicle to be modified, upgraded, and changing functionality while having it in your home or the hub without having to go to a garage or doing a lot of changes. So the vehicles becomes so much sophisticated, so much beneficial. So we said, there's no way the future of cargo bike will stay with mechanical drivetrain. Um, when we started doing it, it was a lot of pushback. Now we're saying like mostly the ones that understand a cargo bike says this is the only way forward. You might have still some wanting to go with belts, but I'd say that's the hybrid or software-based drivetrain is the future, like defining a vehicle. You don't want to go with just a mechanical drivetrain in a car anymore. So why should you upgrade and be into the next century with the bicycle as well?
Yeah, I mean the logic is very sound. And just to ask for fleets who are most likely one of your primary buyers, uh, what kind of benefits does it unlock for them? So is it more reliable than a cargo bike with a mechanical drivetrain? Are the service intervals longer or shorter? How does the uptime look? Is it better than the mechanical drivetrain cargo bikes? So could
So
you maybe
more than a third of all the issues was related to chain issues for a traditional classic cargo bike. So you take away quite a bit. So you're reducing the need for maintenance. You increase the reliability about 1/3, and then you enable this one not to require changes going to a garage, but also being upgraded remotely. So all these things help quite a bit. In addition, you get more functionality that gets the drivers more efficient and more helpful. But I say reliability and then the ability to define the bike differently is one of the biggest benefits.
Yeah, I mean, it really. I mean, when I first browse the website, you know, and I see all the testimonials, all the benefits listed, it looks like a no-brainer. I must say, for someone who's in food delivery, in postal service, it really looks like a no-brainer with that chainless drivetrain. No a small effort you need to put into pedaling, and you know it seems cool. And we've seen a few brands like this, and I must agree, this does seem like the future of last mile delivery, and maybe some I'm not sure personally how this would look in our part of Europe. You know, sometimes I must detach myself from this part of Europe where I live and think about the other countries. And I see this could be something that's very liable very viable in next 5 years to explode, basically.
Yeah.
I,
Uh, sorry.
yeah, no, I would just want to say that I think you would see a big kind of we reached already kind of the understanding that this is the future. I think it'll come across all the cargo bikes in the next years. Some even believes it will change the two-wheelers for it. I think it's really about a more modern vehicle, and there will still be some wanting the classic one. I think again, hardcore cyclists would benefit from having chain systems as well. But a chainless system is for anyone that if you want to change inner city transportation, this is the way to go. And it actually was a bit surprising that we had all this forth and back with legislation in Europe because it should be a no-brainer. But traditional view took a while. Now I think that's it's coming, and it's going to be the only way forward for uh, part of it. As I said, it's not going to take 100% of the market, but it's going to be a majority.
Yep.
You briefly mentioned the driving experience when you said when someone, test drives it or drive for the first time and then, exits the vehicle and says, "Well, I had a great time. This was such an interesting thing." Can you maybe explain how does a vehicle behave? Let's say fully loaded. aerodynamically, suspension wise? How does it behave? Let's say, what does it compare to? What is it comparable to?
So we've been doing a lot of tests, and as I said, normally people come back smiling after testing and being surprised of how well it behaves. And we are planning to, in a few cities like London and some in Germany and Paris, to offer a lot of demos, because it's a learning process. I can explain everything, but it's first when you get in there riding it, you come back and say, no, I get it. And I think what it's a matter about is the responsiveness. So it kind of gives you a feeling that you right away are driving something that gives you speed, agility, and easy to ride, rather than being like slow. You're always expecting getting into a cargo bike that it's a heavy vehicle to drive or to pedal, whereas with us it kicks off and feels sporty. The other thing is it's very responsive in doing turns. So you can go into forth and back with it like doing slalom, but you can also cut a corner and it comes across as you expect, like reliable. It doesn't feel like it could tilt. It feels like it's moving like you would almost expect from a car. And I think when you see it, it's super small width, and it has a height due to the form factor. You need to have both cargo and a passenger, and rider there. You would expect that it isn't stable. So I think this is what surprises most. It feels stable, it feels soft, and it feels sporty. And that's what normally when you get sports car, you are low balancing, and so this is kind of not following the logic of that one. And I think the engineering has been quite good in enabling four-wheel suspension, McPherson type of suspension. It's a hybrid of that. So it gives you the softness. And when I say engineering is quite impressing on these type of vehicles, and especially CityQ, it is that when we are like 150 kilo, you add a driver, you add a cargo, you get up to 420. That is like almost 2 times weight of the net weight you add to it. So if you take a regular EV with about 2 ton, you have to add 4 ton to it. That is quite a lot even for a car. So I think that the efficiency and then the ability to the dynamics of this one is quite a challenge, and I think we've been able to solve that quite well. That's why you're expecting it to be tilting and it feels kind of firm.
Yes, and I also like that it's, again, super small, super agile, but also I think people don't realize the characteristic of a bike and a car, because it's a rear-wheel drive and then has a great cornering radius as well. So it's even more for delivery, for everything. You can just, I think it sounds, I'm imagining how it will drive, but I drove the smaller EVs who are rear-wheel drive, and it's just great in comparison to anything else. Just how easy they are to drive, and how easy they are to get into smaller spaces, especially in old European cities, with the, let's say, the older parts of the cities where deliveries are happening, which are not accessible by the car. Apartment buildings, I think it's just truly awesome how the category you're developing and it's developing globally is looking. So
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because, as we started saying, it's a huge job to change the city transportation and dynamics. Everybody wants less vehicles into the streets where they're pedestrian, but everybody expects that you have to have a car to get around. And can we manage to do that in a way that's not only driven by law to try to forbid cars, but actually have a solution? And I think that solution needs to be inspirational as well. You can't just force it. You need to make it also that it feels acceptable. And that's why we say if the riding feeling is good, if the efficiency of it works well, so you have the users accepting it. It's a huge challenge to get a guy from a van into a bike. That is not an offering that comes across well for them.
Yes, the whole learning curve and the adoption process, it's so hard for people to picture, oh, okay, I'm not gonna be in my warm city van in winter times. No, I'm gonna be driving one of these small funny looking vehicles to them that are, maybe they see so much negatives, but they don't consider the things that, they offer. Because I think the whole process of, okay, let's not let's stop buying this whole new trend of buying huge SUVs for especially our European cities that are just don't make any sense. Then it's a huge gap. Okay, well, there we have a rising sales of this huge SUVs, but also rising sales of super small um, delivery, micromobility, however we want to call them, L6, L7. So
Yeah.
definitely, it's a big paradox happening right now in the industry, I think.
And that's why we are having a big effort also on working together with the municipalities, because municipality need to embrace this and make it attractive. And we will try to make this kind of downsizing not as a downgrading of the drivers, but an upgrade. And that's our challenge. We need to make it attractive, and we need the cities to join in making that. It's if there is no limitation to vans in inner city, people will be driving vans and they will be like a chaotic, and we can't imagine how bad it would be if nothing is happening. So we're seeing cities have reached a level where no one is happy with a million citizen population without any efforts in trying to limit traffic. That's not sustainable. So we got micromobility and what McKinsey is calling mini mobility, downsizing, and it needs to be downsizing in all form factors. It's not like CityQ and cargo bike quads are like the only solution. We need this kind of looking for innovation, and that's one of the things we bring in dialogue with cities. Is like, how do you embrace innovation if you're a city planner, if you're legislation partners, if they say every new thing is a risk, every potential risk of innovation is negative, then there will not be innovation. And what we see now is that some of this embracing coming from cities as well as legislation in Europe with a standard has enabled Europe to create this new type of industry of mini mobility, cargo bike quads. And I think it's fantastic that is happening in Europe, and we should embrace that and make sure that this is actually where Europe come first. Europe have rightly got a lot of criticism from being more legislation than innovation. And if Asia and US is doing all the innovation and Europe is not doing it, we're not in a good place. And quads is one of the really area where we have been at the forefront with innovation.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. I also encourage all listeners to listen to our episode with Martin Lefranc. He is dedicated his role to he is a main person for micromobility implementation in Brussels. So just a small anecdote. But yes, absolutely. I think Europe definitely is leading the way because we are being critical of European system. Of course, we are. We love to legislate everything. We are overcomplicating things. But when it comes to micromobility, we have people on the show from the U.S. and Australia and Oceania, and they say definitely, okay, we come to Amsterdam, we come to Paris. Okay, we are taking inspiration from you guys. You guys are doing great. So yeah.
Yeah.
and
And
I,
then we
I
need to let the industry of quads evolve as well. I mean, Norway has the highest maturity of EVs, but we don't have an EV industry. So everything is imported. So we buy
Mm-hmm.
Chinese and American EVs, not as much European, unfortunately, but some as well. But that's because we've been wanting the change, but we're not creating any benefit from the industry. Europe has a quad industry, and we need to make that keep that happening and embrace that. So it's going to be a change in the cities, but it's also a way of building an industry that I think is important.
What is when it comes to scaling, when it comes to growing, what does scaling mean for you for the CityQ right now? Uh, New facilities, new markets, new partners, new services. What would you say is, let's say your, we could say maybe next 3 years, or maybe you can say 2030 plan. What's going to happen for CityQ? I mean, you don't know, but if you had like a
No, no,
magic.
we have a clear plan, a strategy for how it's evolving. As I said, I think I'm not an engineer person, so I've been looking at this in how do you create a solution, and how is that solution becoming an industry and an area of product. So we not try to make a cool bike, we make a platform for an industry. And I'm a big believer that partnerships is going to drive this industry. Ability to grow production. Production is pretty difficult when it comes to logistics, supply chain, ability to serve it after sales, etc. So this has all this complexity to it. So you can't just go out and sell a lot like you can in software and then you just deliver. You had to bring everything into the stable part. So we've been working a lot on the different levels and working on how can we do small steps so we can be predictable and then grow it. So now it's not about making the most, but getting the right customers, getting them happy. Then we have prepared for mass production, for big scaling, where it's available for all different segments and markets. So as I said, since we have a chassis and platform that can go B2B and B2C, it's kind of a sweet spot in enabling scaling and enabling costs coming down. If you're only making a 2 cubic quad that fits for one segment, then you have to rely on that segment. So we say, let's try to go across it and try to make this fit. The same go with software, connectivity, and ability to offering it in a rental and leasing options. So we're looking in from supply chain to the way it's being packaged and changed. And I'm a big believer in that we have to understand innovation is happening in different speeds. And if you're not understanding the different speeds, you might end up in underestimates. So if we were expecting that you need a new infrastructure before it's successful, like EV is doing, you're running into a lot of trouble. Like as we discussed, if you're waiting for charge points to come all across London for the big change, you will be delayed. If you're waiting for infrastructure for flying drones in London or flying cars, you're going to wait quite a bit. Infrastructure takes time. Legislation takes almost as long time. Hardware takes fairly long time, software is quickly, and business models go super quick. If you look at
Yeah,
Pokemon, Pokemon went so quickly. It came and kind of disappeared before the business model arrived. And I think
Mhm.
that's why we have to understand we can always change and adapt to the business model, but we have to respect it's taking longer time with the others.
Yeah, I think it's just before we jump into the news section, I think the whole market today with how things are being presented is there's a lot of hype around things. We are hearing about a change that's gonna come, that's gonna crush everything, but in the actual reality, it's not happening on that scale that's being said. I am a big critic of autonomous driving. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but it's being talked so much, but it's not being implemented to the scale where we are saying, okay, this is. I mean, Tesla's been talking about it for ages, but we are still having people in the car. But this is just my take. Philip, sorry.
Exactly, and we would love bragging about what the future can bring, and then we end up with something that takes so long time. So in the end, we need to also focus what is actually able to happen. It was one of the guys in the industry saying like we were promised flying cars, but all we got was bike lanes. And
Yeah.
I think it's about stay core. You could talk about it. I love the idea of being disruptive, but you still had to focus what can you enable, and get that into action?
You know what? I think that people simply don't know how hard is doing hardware. Um, People underestimate that, and as you said, software is fast, um, and that moves so fast. You can sell it fast, you can scale it fast, you can do wonders in just 1 month. But can you build a completely new platform, innovative platform for a last mile delivery in 1 month? No. So
No.
that's something that I don't think people really understand how much engineering work and thought goes into creating a cargo bike like CityQ. And that's maybe one of the biggest issues that we simply don't know. We don't know because no one told us, and
No.
we can't read about it anywhere because all we can see in any type of media outlet is something that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna help with anything in our lives. I think that's maybe a different kind of problem and a topic, but yeah, I
But
believe that.
it's an interesting topic because, as you say, we're getting so, as consumers, we're getting so used to that we can be uh, s- amazed by all the things happening in software, and it's fantastic. But it's easy to easier to make, but much easier to distribute. I'm an old guy, so I was around at the .com, and it was surprisingly to see how many relying upon a business model that somebody others could bring for free. So every business model that was saying, I build this software and we're going to make tons of money, forgot that the others getting some investors to make it can then give it away for free, and your business model was disruptive. You're never going to make money on it. So on the hardware part, the capex, the cost element you put into it is not as easy. The changing of it is not that easy, but that also makes it more stable as a business model. You could rely more upon it, and you have to understand the dynamics of it. And we don't expect that people understand it, but I think it's a lot of underestimation how hard it is, but also then how difficult it is for anyone to come in and just fix it. So when you reach a level like we're doing now with matureness, you're reaching a level where you can go online and find a lot of cool vehicles, a lot of them saying, oh, there's so many others there. And when you start looking at it, they're either just on PowerPoint or AI made, or it's a prototype that's not going to work.
Yep. And not now, when you mentioned the business model, there's something I wanted to ask. Uh, I mean, you can sell the vehicle, but is there an option to offer it maybe as a bike as a service? Or is there an option for leasing or something like that? So
Yeah.
what's the
So
split? How many buy, how many lease?
I'd say that we have started offering, we want to have a three, we call it a mixed ownership. So you buy, you lease, or you rent or subscribe. And we're seeing that the market probably would be 1/3 each. And if you go with corporates, the bigger the corporates, the more they would like to avoid having it on the balance sheet. So they would go with vehicle as a
Yeah,
service.
yeah.
Whereas when you come to consumer, they would normally like to rent it as well, but they would be more reluctant about having to pay something every month. So the balance between, can they afford upfront payment and then not having to pay it, or could they fit it for like their I would say variable usage in a monthly base.
And in your experience with CityQ and all the deals you went through, what helped you win the most deals? Is it the monthly price? Is it the uptime guarantee, city access, or capital expenditure price, or something like that?
I,
What was the main thing?
I think that we've been more offering it for sales initially than subscription based, but I'd say that leasing has been at least half of the requests.
Yeah, that seems pretty good, taking into account that it's so probably all fleets, all would be corporate fleets, I suppose.
Yeah, but when we started like 2 years ago, interest rate was very low. So everybody would kind of see this as a low cost to spread it all over the time. The higher the interest rate, the more you actually pay additionally for it. So I would say with a higher interest rate now, more tendency to say, if I can afford it, then that could be an option, at least for the SMEs, the smaller corporations. And also a lot of leasing companies wouldn't be offering. So we have a lot of startups that would like to use it. They wouldn't be able to get it normally through a traditional leasing company. So we have to see how can we actually offer some flexibility for them.
Yeah, it seems that the demand for such vehicles has really grown in the last 2, 3 years. I think you can say the best that the market has really shifted a bit, with and the general opinion about cargo bikes and three-wheelers and four-wheelers and L6 vehicles. So I think it's something's changing. I think we are maybe realizing that the future is now and we need to adopt.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're seeing now it's being realized as something that has a place in the market. Unfortunately, it's early adopters on making the vehicle and customers, and you have reliability issues, you have a learning issue, you have a lot of startups. This is not like the big OEMs, the automotive industry making it. They wouldn't be able, they're not willing. I mean, shame on them for not being more innovating. But when startup does it and take all the risk, there is also some failure to it. It is difficult, as you say. It's quite difficult to make hardware, so you had to go through a learning process. And now when it start maturing, we see the interest. We're seeing Honda coming in. We're seeing manufacturings of cars being interested. They will be quite interested in the future, and we'll see. They will maybe have to kind of join forces with some of the startups. And I think we're going to see that this has become mainstream in the next 5 years.
Yes, I do kind of see the similar thing happening in that industry. What is happening now with the AI and how is Google acquiring all the startups, AI startups, or just working with them? I think that's going to potentially happen as well with the smaller companies. And when the bigger companies realize, bigger OEMs have realize, okay, this is really the market, this is really the shift. Okay, now we have to jump in, but it's a bit too late. We need the help from the smaller guys, and
Yep.
that's you. Morten, we're jumping into our last section called quick fire round. I'm going to ask you short questions, and you can give me a simple answer. The first one is the most misunderstood thing about a four-wheel e-bike.
I think it's understanding how it's not a big bike, it's a small car or van. I think that the perception that this is big is because you look upon what the traditional two-wheel bikes is, and then you get the questions like, does it fit into the bike lanes, etc. We are solving congestion, and you need four-wheeler for that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I agree. Definitely. We've heard similar stories about that before. One city policy that instantly improves last mile logistics. So maybe something that needs to happen.
I think it's that the municipalities really make a true limitation on the car traffic. We've seen successfully there's less parking spots. They actually fine if cars are stopping illegally, double parking, etc. But it's also smart that they make benefits for cycling. So bike lanes is one thing, but saying this is for micromobility, so making painted bike lanes larger, wider, not small, and even better when they say car traffic and micromobility should have the same speed in a city, which Ideally, it should be 30 kilometer for both. Right now, it's 25 for micromobility. So if your car's doing 25 as well, then you have this kind of hybrid traffic that would work well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. One metric you obsess over.
Obsess in sense of
And since you're focused on it, you're,
okay, so yeah,
putting a lot of
so yeah.
efforts into fixing it or improving it.
I think that enabling the right offer in flexibility, as we're saying, offering low barrier to get started to test it, and
Mm-hmm.
then making sure that this is giving them the right understanding of what it is. I think that would change a lot. Right now, barriers is a little bit too high. We are not producing that much, but I think as soon as we can change that, we're gonna have a huge change. It's like everything else we've seen. Like it takes a while for people to know about it. When they start getting the taste for it, it's gonna happen quite quickly.
That's what we mentioned. You mentioned before, enabling all those test drive options in all those bigger European cities. I think that definitely I would love to test drive one. I'm guessing Philip as well. What's next? And we kind of briefly touched on it. What's next for you guys? Passenger growth, cargo specialization, platform expansion. What's the next
So
focus?
it's bringing the full setup with combining passenger bikes and cargo bikes into a few cities and demonstrating the benefits in these cities. So rather than just being all over the place, we're trying to focus on a few areas. So we're actually going to be really focused, succeeding with showcasing it, bringing these offerings, the demos in a few cities. That would be the most important thing going forward. And we're doing this now in a few cities in 2026. Then we can
Mm-hmm.
speed up with other cities afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, we wish you all the best luck in that. We are, definitely absolutely sure you're gonna succeed in everything you plan. Because your product is looking awesome. A huge thanks once more, Morten, for joining us today and the whole CityQ team. Definitely CityQ is one of those leaders, one of those who are looking the best, feeling the best, and just addressing the market the fastest. We'll love to have you again for the potentially round two to see where you guys are doing in a year or a few months. Why not? Thank you once more, Morten. This was truly great.
Thank you. It was
Thanks for
great
the
to meet.
opportunity. And I love the focus you have. I think it's needed. It's city transportation and innovation in vehicles is going to be quite important for the next years in Europe.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think we found our niche, and I mean we've seen no one do this, no one cover this, and I mean being from Europe, we know that there are so many European brands and European geniuses who are. I mean, when you put so many constraints on a man, it's something new needs to be. Something innovative needs to happen because we in Europe we really do have some constraints. Is it regulation? Is it something else? But it really helps us innovate. Maybe not in the way they do it in Asia or US, but we do have some. We have our own shtick, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but I think we also have a culture of interest to share among different markets. So I think the benefits of, even though it's fragmented with all the countries, I see there's also this innovation and this willingness to talk. And I think we're actually being better and better in cross Europe working together. So I think we have strength. We just need to enable this one. And as you say, getting the framework and legislation to support it, and hopefully that could be one of the future where Europe can be more innovating and more growth oriented.
And I just
Absolutely.
like to end on an idea you just mentioned, which is really something I haven't thought about. 10 years ago, I really doubt that the cross-European partnerships could happen so easily and so fruitfully. And I think that today in 2026, I think that it doesn't matter anymore if you're from UK, Denmark, France, Croatia, Bulgaria. We're all Europeans and we all share the technology, the knowledge, and on all our expertise. So I think I think something good is happening in Europe, and it's about time to
Yeah,
be.
actually,
Yes.
I think we're getting more of one team rather than all the different
Yes.
kind of countries and
Yes.
difference. We see similarities and a common culture.
Yes. It looks
Absolutely.
like that.
Let's hope
But
so.